You know the rules, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And now we take this guy out. Our horse. Should I say horse?
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, it's too difficult.
So I'm going to explain the best opening for beginners. It is called the Scholar's Mate. So you start with this move. You know, advancing your pawn 2 squares, taking a little bit of control, preparing to develop your queen. What could be better? And your opponent will probably answer with the same move. And then, what is your strongest piece? It is the queen. So you bring out your queen and you bring it out as far as you can and you attack this pawn. If you get really lucky, your opponent might play this move, threatening your queen. What could be more natural? You want to expel the enemy. But then you can give a check, taking this pawn. And when your opponent blocks, you get a rook. The rook! And isn't that a fantastic start to the game? You're a rook and a pawn up. Even better. Let's say your opponent wants to play a bomb cloud, which is when you bring out the king early. Your opponent moves the king here. You got a checkmate in 3 moves. If you're not as lucky as that, let's say your opponent makes a sensible move, like developing the knight and defending this pawn. Then you can go for what we actually call the Scholar's Mate, bringing out the bishop. You might think that black would want to develop a knight, attack your queen. But there we go. That is a checkmate. The bishop defends the queen, and the king has nowhere to go. If your opponent is really, really smart and is able to spot the threat and doesn't move like this, then that's fine. You can move the queen back, and you're threatening checkmate again. Let's say your opponent defends the pawn with a knight. Then you can start developing your other pieces. Bring out the knight, bring out the pawn. Maybe this pawn to cover this square so a bishop doesn't land here attacking the queen. And you have a perfectly fine development for your pieces. So there you go, kids. The best opening for beginners. The Scholar's Mate. Go out and try it.
Yeah, like I'm 5-year-old.
For a 5-year-old, okay. It's really hard, to be honest. We have 8 pawns. So, like for chess, like a first move, if you move your pawns and you can step 2. So we go forward like e4, and these 4 squares called center. So we put our pawns to center. It's a good thing. You push your pawn forward and also try to control the center. And now we have this special piece called knight, and you jump, and we can see knight jumps like L shape. Like you can go like this, you can go like this. So we jump my pieces to the center, and now you also jump your knight to the center.
Oh, it's too difficult.
And we go forward, and here we meet the exchange in the chess, and we just like your pawns can take like this way, just I don't know how to say it, like diagonally. And as we already know the knight can go like L shape, like so we can call this also like L shape. And here we push this way, and every opening like this pawn structure, and this well-known opening is like dragon. It looks like, because this bishop goes diagonally, and if you put your bishop here, and you can see that this diagonal, and you can attack white pieces. So that's why that looks like a dragon. You fly to this and to this, and so that's why we call this opening dragon. And maybe we jump like this knight, and you go this, and this I think is we call it as a dragon.
So is this scary for white because of the dragon bishop?
I think when I was a kid, I played this with black. I think I beat a lot of players, also like some stronger players, because this kind of opening is very tactical, because you can see this pieces looks, how to say, massive and just like a dragon. So I think it's very useful for children to learn.
Okay, so I'll show an opening called the Ruy Lopez. It starts when we take this guy in front of our king. This is our king. And we're taking, these are like the foot soldiers. They're the weakest guys on the board, the ones that we can most easily sacrifice, so we kind of throw them forward immediately, although we don't always want to give them away. And then black just does the same thing. So same idea, copying us. And now we take this guy out, our horse, should I say horse?
Yeah, that's good.
And then he is attacking this guy right in front. So basically, if our opponent doesn't do anything, then we're just going to, next move, just take it off the board. And then we're going to have more material. So our opponent is probably going to not copy us, but they're probably going to try to stop us from doing that. So they're going to kind of mirror us. And they're going to take their horse out, which it doesn't threaten us, but it makes sure that we can't, if we take this guy, then we lose our horse, and we don't want to do that because this is much better than these guys. This is really important. So we want to keep those, and we want to make sure that this horse is really not comfortable. So we take this guy out, and then we slide him along. These guys can go really far, so he goes almost the whole board, and now he's looking right at him, and there's nowhere for that horse to go, really. So it's, we can take it next move if we want. There's pretty much no escape, and that's the Ruy Lopez.
You know the rules, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we are playing with white pieces, and we start the game with e4. Yeah? Why do we make this move? We are occupying the center, but we are also taking an eye on the d5 square. Yeah? So usually when you put the pieces towards the center, it cannot be bad. Many people will play the same, e7, e5. Now you're developing the knight, because in the beginning it's very important to develop the pieces to castle, to fight for the center. So with this move you are threatening to take on e5. So if your opponent is not careful, and sometimes you may see that somebody plays something like, for example, b6, it's a really bad move because you can already take the pawn. But quite often your opponents will see that the pawn is hanging, and they will try to protect it by developing their own pieces. So knight c6 is a very common move. And now we develop our next piece, it's the bishop. So we move the bishop to c4. Again, it's towards the center. We are taking an eye on this pawn, and we don't allow black to occupy the center. For example, now d5 is not possible because you take with the bishop or with the pawn, and black cannot recapture because you have the protection. And now you may only remember one move more. If black is developing another knight towards the center, you have this idea of playing knight to g5, attacking this pawn. And your opponent will already be a bit shocked because it's not so easy to defend it. In case your opponent will develop the bishop, yeah, also looks very normal, then we can think about fighting for the center with the moves like c3 followed by d4. So that was the Italian game.
Okay, maybe Petrov with black. Let's start with king pawn, which is one of the main stuff of many of the world champions. e5 is one of the solid replies, keeping the symmetrical structure and controlling the central squares. Here, white attacks the pawn on e5, and black can decide whether to play knight c6 and to allow Ruy Lopez or Italian kind of stuffs, or to play this knight f6, also attacking the pawn on e4. And knight f6 is Petrov, which I have played quite often from my childhood for many years. So I like this because of having a tempo. White can just deny to take the pawn on e5 and defend the e pawn with knight c3, asking to play knight c6 to play 4 knights. Or white can simply capture the pawn on e5. In case black captures the pawn on e4, queen comes to e2, and knight cannot be moved, because if knight moves back somewhere, knight c6 will happen. It's a check and the queen on d8 is going to be lost. So the most obvious reply is to attack this knight first, so that once the knight goes back, we'll capture the pawn. Again, here there are all 3 moves possible: knight c4, knight d3, and this is the main move. And now black can capture the pawn, as queen e2 is met by queen e7. So this is the main move to start with d4. We secure the central square, we support this centralized knight with the pawn, and at the same time we are trying to develop our pieces, like the diagonal for the bishop is open, and our aim is very simple: to keep the symmetrical structure and to develop the bishop and short castle. So bishop to d3, attacking the knight and to play short castle. And of course here again there are several moves available, like bishop f5, bishop e7 and knight c6.